Okay, it's 6:30. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bruce.
My dad.
Yeah. Okay, I guess Jerry isn't here tonight. Do we have a volunteer to take the minutes?
Was she gonna do what she did before, was just take the minutes off of the recording?
Okay, then we will say that. And she can't argue with this. Good luck, Jerry.
May the force be with you.
Okay, so there's nobody online, it looks like.
There's 3 participants.
Yeah, he participates.
At the bottom.
Yeah, he participates on the bottom. The left.
Yes, there are no members of the public online and no board members, except for Matt.
Yeah, there you go. You're good.
Somebody's coming in.
Yep.
Here's Brad.
Brad's here.
Oh, Matt.
Derek, I think, soon.
Motion for German?
Don't let him off that.
Okay. So,
I'm gonna take a little, I can write down here.
well, I'll just say it out loud. Eric is the only member not present,
Sitting.
and he may join us later online. Just so, that way Jerry will.
Very good.
Do I have a motion on the minutes from May 16th? So local.
Second.
Is there any corrections, additions, or comments?
Comments.
Go ahead.
I looked at the minutes previously for the meeting starting, and I had spoken to the finance director, but we may need those as a reference a little bit later. That's all.
Oh, you mean last month's?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, hearing nothing else. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We will move on to the treasurer's report.
All righty. So we will start with our executive summary as of May 31, 2023. So fiscal year to date, the town has received revenue of $50,634,711, or 104.9% of the total amount of $48,377,698 budgeted. When comparing our performance to last fiscal year, we are 2.6% ahead of this time last year. Then we're moved down to the authorized investment section. At the end of May, the town had $30.4 million in its bank accounts. The investment committee transferred $7 million during the month of May out of the STIP account and back into Webster for town payables and payroll. In the last month, the STIP rate increased to 5.07%, and today it is at 5.12%. As you can see, interest rates on all our accounts have moved upwards slightly, and that is good news for the town of Old Saybrook. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Then we'll move to the pension plan. At the end of May, we received our report from Morgan Stanley, our investment manager, on the 2 pension plans. The town pension plan is up 6.24% fiscal year to date versus its benchmark of 6.61%. Over the 3-year horizon, the town plan has returned 5.82 versus its benchmark of 6%. The fire department pension plan is up 6.15% fiscal year to date and has returned 5.95% over the 3-year horizon versus its benchmark of 6%. Overall, the treasurer's responsibility is to oversee all monies belonging to the town, and as of May 31, total cash balances were $30.4 million, pension balances were $26.5 million, for total assets under management of $56.9 million. So then we'll move to page 2 of the treasurer's report, showing the revenue broken out in more detail. Tax revenues were 85,195 for the month, bringing the fiscal year-to-date total to 48,103,066, or 102.7% of the amount budgeted for fiscal year 23. In May, if you look down at local revenues, in May, the town received $72,000 in interest income, totaling so far for fiscal year 23, $661,000 of interest income to the town.
Nice.
In terms of local revenues, the town collected $301,560 in local revenues, 4.9% of our fiscal year 23 budget. As of April 30th, the town has a 2.2 million surplus. Anybody have any questions?
2.2 million surplus on revenue.
In revenue.
I have just one question, not sure to whom this should go, but
Sure.
in the Vicky Duffy Pavilion, I was just trying to look it up, but I can ask the question faster than I can look it up. We are at year-to-date receipts of 19,800 over a budget of 6,000. What did we budget for 24?
We budgeted 6,000.
For cleaning, it's more.
No, that's.
No,
revenue
this
side.
is revenue side.
Revenue.
So what's the revenue jump there?
13.
So the jump is that the Vicky Duffy was closed down during COVID. And then we, prior to that, we didn't have the Vicky Duffy revenues coming into the general fund. They were kind of all funneled through Park and Rec and used to offset expenses. So we were at a little bit of a disadvantage from in terms of projecting a new revenue
Being able to
that
know
what it is. So believe me, that will probably go up next year.
We need to put
Yeah.
that, because that place is rented every night.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, it's good. It's good. I just didn't know whether.
I mean, it's amazing. I called for an event in July, end of July, and there was no chance. I mean, somebody had rented it all day, and so.
Did you tell them who you were?
I know somebody.
It's actually for a retirement party for Torrance Downs, who
really?
is retiring from the COG as their planner. And we thought we were gonna try to have it there because he can walk there from where he lives. So, but it's fun, so we're trying to find an alternate spot.
Okay, are there any other questions for Terry? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the finance director.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So Barbara did mention the surplus of 2.2 million. My surplus revenue projection is 2.3 million because I have the most recent access to the most recent data. And it probably won't get much more than that from a revenue side. We still don't know about the expenditure side. Also, I wanted to point out in the treasurer's report under miscellaneous income for the month of May, we had almost $32,000 in miscellaneous income. Tom, 12,000 of that was the key card revenues that we get in.
Nice.
And we did mention that last time. And the other, just under $20,000 was from the sale of our WPCA van. And I know.
Yeah, the big truck, the big white
Oh,
truck.
the big one, not the
service truck.
Yeah. So, and we put it through our normal process of taking pictures of it, putting it on gov.com like we do with everything else. And
We
so
cleaned it up first. They cleaned it up nice
Good.
and then sold it. That's, I mean,
Makes a difference.
I forget what we bought that for.
32.
32, and that was at least 10 years ago.
Long
Okay, I thought maybe it was even more, but 32, we got 20 back.
that's all written off now. We have the money in miscellaneous income. That's done. The auditors are going to be here next week to kick off our audit for fiscal year 23. They're going to do their planning, and then they'll be back in October to do their final audit. And also, I'm sad to say that my assistant finance director, Christy Malave, has left. She's resigned. Was here for 2 years. And she and I work very closely together. I thought she might be my successor someday. So East Lyme is getting a very well-trained deputy finance director. And I wish her all the luck, but I'm disappointed to say the least, you know, put all that time and effort in, but just as an FYI, there's about 8 to 9 finance director positions open throughout the state. So it's very, very, very tough environment now to attract that type of talent. So, but everything's fine. The staff that we have up there is, you know, been here for a really long time, and she and I are separating out the duties, and you know, we're not worried at all. You know, we're going to take care of everything, and it'll be just fine. So turning to the report.
So I just want to comment on that for a minute. So Leanne is taking on more. And Lucia is taking on more.
Have you taken on more, Leanne?
And Lucia is in the union and she must be compensated. And I insisted that Leanne be compensated for, it is not equal by any means, but not even close to the salary of the assistant finance director. But it's additional compensation for both, and they should, I mean, everybody should know that. And Leanne declined at first, just so you know. And I didn't.
She can have a lapse of judgment, that's okay.
Because it's additional
You
responsibility.
get a vacation time too?
I would have bargained for that if I was.
No,
very
I
good
just,
be. I'm
to
never
be
gonna
clear
complain.
to the
Never
board,
gonna complain.
Well deserved.
Thank you for that. In terms of what's different between this month and last month, under budget appropriations on the first page, you all did approve the $30,000 retiree health appropriation. That has not been changed in the budget yet. So since it's an appropriation from fund balance, our budget's actually going to go up 30,000. And I think that we're going to have a town meeting soon. He hasn't scheduled it yet, but when it does, then I'll fix that on this report. Turning to page 2, under cash flow summary, again, we're still in May, so as the treasurer reported, we're kind of drawing our funds down, but we do expect in a couple weeks that we're going to start seeing the money flow back in. General fund used 3.2 million. We got in about $300,000 worth of revenues. We spent about $3.5 million worth of expenditures, typical for every month. Capital funds went up $470,000. Now, actually, I was just a little late in booking something. This came from the ARPA $500,000 for those Main Street crossways. I had to set up a new account and do some things. So you'll see the non-major funds are down by $694. It was just an internal transfer out of the ARPA funds and into a new fund so that we can get ready to spend the money on those crosswalks whenever that occurs. Under reserve funds, down 39,000. That came out of the in part out of the reval account. We're getting ready for our reval, so we did spend some money out of that. And under non-major funds, which include ARPA, again the 500,000 for the sides for the crosswalks, and 142,000 for pension fund payments, and 38,000 for the family for the main drivers there. Page 3, we didn't have a lot of activity in our capital and reserve accounts. We have very healthy balances since we're going to be talking about making some appropriations tonight potentially. Just mentioned that the capital non-recurring is very healthy at $1,152,847. And you know, the treasurer talked about the $661,000 that went into the general fund. These are separate bank accounts. And so throughout the course of the year, and we're not done yet, we've actually made just under $80,000 in interest for the capital non-recurring. So that never had, so almost like a real appropriation, but it came through in terms of interest.
So does that end up getting credited into capital non-recurring?
Correct, yes.
What?
Yeah, because it's a separate bank account.
Wow.
So all we have about, I don't know how many, we have about 20 bank accounts that are statutorily required to be separate. Municipal reserve fund is one of them, dog fund, I forget what the other ones are. But anyway, we set them up at Webster and they get paid the same rate as they do at the Webster Bank.
Is the ARPA money in a separate account or is that in a general account?
That's that's the money that's outside of ARPA is earning interest for ARPA. The money that's in the other accounts is earning money for the general fund. But if y'all would like to make a change, I'm happy to accommodate that.
No, I'm happy to have it in mind.
Okay, good. And then I just want to, on the expenditure report, make a couple of, point out a few accounts that are going over their budget. 4142, retiree health, you've already dealt with that. That's, right now just about $5,000 or $6,000 over, but we haven't paid the pension yet for the month of, well, we have paid it, but you haven't seen the transaction come through. So that will be the $30,000 overage that y'all voted on last month. Registrar of Voters 4149 is at 101%. That's about that's not very much. It's only a couple $1,000 over. We still have some more expenses. We talked about that during the budget process about the extra folks that are coming on. So that's what caused the overage for this fiscal year. So far, insurance just slightly over, although we're going to pay another bill. And that'll make it, but it's not going to be anywhere near the 25,000. Economic development 4173, we predicted would be over, and that's at 99% as of this moment. About 3/4 of the way down. Engineering 4305, that's $17,000 over at 121%. We talked about that, but that's not going to go over the 25,000 either. And then way down at the bottom. Parks other 450505 is at almost 109%, about $6,000 over there, and that according to the director is not in danger of going over the 25,000 either. So again, these are more accounts than typical that go over, but I think that they are explainable.
Question.
Yeah.
These overages, are they related to overspending or are they related to the unforeseen inflation factor?
Well,
Yeah.
I think that they each have their own story.
Okay.
Retiree health insurance is because we had additional folks coming on board.
Right.
Registrar of Voters is because of the staffing issues. Insurance is right about where it is. Economic development, there was a restructuring. Engineering, Carl talks about that every single month. And parks, probably due to the higher cost of hiring contractors and whatever else they spend their money. So a little bit different for each store.
I know whether they started to hire this summer help yet and whether or not the new minimum wage comes into effect there, which we've been anticipating.
We did put budget for that, so we should be okay with that.
Yeah, minimum wage went up over the course of 5 years, actually 4 years.
Quickly.
Yeah, because they kept backing it up a month, but we're there, we made it. We're at $15 an hour as of June 1.
People think we're getting more money, but the real reason is the state gets more revenue.
It also, we're also gonna pay people who were getting $15. Now we're gonna pay them $18 too. And for us, it really affects us more park and rec than anywhere. So it's kids. These aren't restaurant workers who, maybe, there's arguments both ways on that.
Are there any further questions on the finance director? Thank you, Leanne. And then we'll move on to item 7, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to town meeting to fund the proposal by Camion for the 2023 strategic plan focus for Mariners Lake.
Mr. Chairman, can I just note that Eric Dussault has joined us?
Oh, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Eric said he was running a few minutes late. He texted me, but he's up there.
Yep.
And, so with regard to this item, actually Matt Pugliese and Bruce Carlson also sat on the selection committee. So they may have something to add. I don't know if I'm clearing my throat because of the smoke. I know it's probably affecting a lot of people, but with also Jennifer Donahue and Chris Costa. So this is to take, as you can see in the memo that was sent to the Board of Finance, take another look at Mariners Way. It's a very difficult stretch of land. It's privately owned. It's not public land. It's not land that the town is going in there to take over. So that's what I think that's what makes it a little bit difficult. There is some vacant land there that could be purchased. Certainly the Custom Marine property and the old Poinkowski property, which is directly across from Mystic Market, not kitty corner, but directly across. That's a rather large piece. It's not all dry, some of it's wet, but it is buildable in there. So the idea is to bring in a consultant post-COVID. Things have changed. You know, you're hearing more about housing now. Certainly, we would have no objection to housing, some housing over there. The way we do business has changed. So the proposal by Moy, there were 5 responses to the RFP that was put out. There was a healthy discussion amongst the group as to who should be chosen. And I think, you know, generally it was agreed with a few. We did a couple follow-up questions to Camoin to make sure that we were getting the right team and the right expertise and the right services to choose this group. So there'll be an initial meeting and set up with our group to understand the project background. They are also going to look at all the work that we have done to date on Mariners Way. And they'll summarize some of the key takeaways from those documents to kind of work towards their strategic plan. They're going to do a market analysis. That's one of the things. I mean, I think we all can agree that the market has changed significantly. And what they're stating is to identify a primary and a secondary market geography for which to gather information. They're going to do socioeconomic characterization for the area, identifying the market potential, market trends, national and regional real estate trends, existing inventory in the Old Saybrook market, and demand, projected demand, and absorption for certain types of services or housing that might be recommended. They'll look at residential, retail, restaurant, outdoor recreation, office space if needed, flex light industrial. I think some of that is waning a little bit. And the deliverable from the market analysis will be used to create an interim analysis report that will be incorporated into the final report. It will identify primary and secondary markets for residential, retail, restaurants, outdoor recreation, and office. Then they're going to plan on doing an economic opportunity study. They'll inventory resources available to support economic development in the town. They'll look at land use and zoning, which is, I don't know how many of you remember the last time after we hired Civic Moxie, they wanted to go to zoning and say, you should change zoning, and that will bring people, that will bring developers to the town. Zoning said, no, that's not what we think we should listen to developers. And if they want to change zoning, that's what we'll consider. Maybe in hindsight, that was good because things have changed so much. So if they changed the zoning back then, it may have changed again. That may have been a little pressure on zoning's part. They'll look at economic opportunity study. They'll identify key market opportunities and the challenges and barriers that exist. They'll determine how and what items in the 2017 Mariners Way plan may need to be adjusted. So the 2017 plan was a bar grant, brownfield area. It wasn't remediation, but it was a bar grant. So it was not, there was a small match to that, but that was a grant that we used to get that. And
Is that a
so,
site assessment?
I'm sorry?
Site assessment, are you talking about?
No, that was a different grant. we
Oh,
received. Ty and Bond did an assessment, an environmental assessment of the custom marine property.
Right,
That was different.
okay.
No, we got a bar grant to kind of look at how we might economically inject something into this area, and that didn't really go anywhere. They drew up a plan. They did not go out and solicit and help us bring in folks. The idea here is eventually to get them to match some of the properties to spur development out there with developers who might want to come in. Obviously, they're going to do community input, outreach meetings, interviews with property owners, tenants on Mariners Way, relevant public and private agencies, and influential others, maybe this board. Obviously, any desirable stakeholders that we may want to talk to Steve Tagliatella. We may want to talk to Matt Rubin at the shopping center. We might want to talk to Ron Lyman, and other developers in the area and from outside the area. There's no doubt, by the way, that not having sewers is a limitation. It just is. It's not a death knell, but it is a limitation. I did a presentation, I forget where, and I forget what organization it was, a real estate group. And I did a presentation out of town one night on the last one. And as soon as folks heard no sewers, they kind of backed away a little bit. So it will definitely involve involving developers. You don't necessarily need sewers. Obviously, you can have housing like we do at the train station, and that's not a sewer, that's a system, a community system. They'll present the findings, and then there's an economic development strategy that they'll synthesize all the previous phases to develop an executive summary that will serve as an introduction to the strategic plan. They'll write it for a general audience, graphics, and make recommendations on how the town can proactively engage with public, private, and nonprofit sectors to achieve the redevelopment goals for Mariners Way. And then a plan execution that will have a request for expressions of interest. So they're calling that an RFEI, a formal solicitation to prospective partners for redevelopment projects aimed at developers, business owners, nonprofits, and other entities that would potentially partner with the town to redevelop the area. So we've been working on this area for a very long time. We've gotten a couple things have changed out there, not much. Hunter's ambulance went in, wild birds went in, but there obviously the area is ripe for redevelopment. It's hard to believe, and I had this discussion with Brad, and I've had it with a lot of other people, that a 20-acre parcel out there there's not more interest in it. We've done an assessment on that property. We probably have to do another assessment at this point. Assessments are only valid for a certain, environmental assessments are only valid for a certain period of time. The banks usually want something a little bit more current. And if we did that, we'd probably be able to get grant money. And if we ever wanted to do a remediation, we wouldn't do it for the current owners. We would do it with a development partner. The current owners don't seem to want to, well, current owners are the heirs of the former owners, and it makes it a little messier. There's not two owners anymore. There's more like, I don't even know how many, 6 or 7. So that makes it a little messier out there. But I still think, another assessment, if we need to, along with going to the state for remediation funds for that site, with a new developer, could entice somebody ultimately. You know, what that is, I'm not saying what that is. The geography, the limits of the property are from basically across from Mystic Market over towards Gladeview, essentially. That's kind of the area that we're looking at. This group is quite experienced. All of them were, the bids range anywhere from 60,000 to like 240,000. Most of them were more in this range, I think. And Bruce, want to add anything on that?
Nope, I think you did. I think you did a great job.
Wow, okay,
I have a question.
yeah,
What's the flood zone situation in that?
yeah, there's flood zones. So right where San Siam was, the Thai restaurant, that's a flood zone. So, housing would be difficult there, but it could be done.
But that whole area where Custom Marine is not.
I wanted
Now
to,
Tyra,
I
yeah.
also wanted to give Matt, Puglisi a chance. Matt, I don't know if you wanted to chime in with anything.
No, I think you did a great job summarizing everything. I think that this is really important with all the different funding opportunities that are out there for us to be positioned as a town to go after the right grants and attract the right partners to do that with.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it's really about perhaps attracting the right grants. I mean, Matt works in economic development at the state level. And there's opportunities out there with the right presentation. And I don't think we have the tools yet to do that presentation. But there is a lot of money out there, and I know Matt's given a lot of it away.
11 million yesterday. They gave it.
So a lot of work went into this. I mean, this has been a lengthy process. You know, 5 people sat on a committee. You know, the RFPs are not easy to draft. You know, they take a lot of work to put out there. I think we only had 5 submissions for this, thankfully, because on the marketing piece that economic development is doing, they had something like 20. And then you have to narrow it down to 5, you know, or 4. So we had 5 here, all very qualified, like we said. And a lot of work was, I mean, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this.
Question, Carl, whatever happened to the proposal for incubators or flex space? Back years ago, we had somebody come in and do something. They were going to put incubators. It originally was going to be in the Gardella property, and then obviously that sold. Then it moved over to Custom Marine. But I don't know whatever happened with that proposal.
Not familiar with it.
Yeah, it was something to start like a flex space type situation. Groton's doing it over by Pfizer with Pfizer's old buildings, and they're starting to take off over there. I'm just curious.
So, I mean, there is incubator space. I'm not sure what you mean by it, but I mean, it could be one of several things. It could be these, like a hive where you have businesses come in and, you know, people might be working from home, but they rent a desk for 2 days a week. Or co-working space. I don't know if that's what you mean.
Yeah, they call it hotel space now.
Or if you mean manufacturing incubators, I'm not.
It could be either way, but the one over in Groton that I saw was, it was hotel office space where everybody shared various desks in a particular area for a company. And they worked from home, but they all came in and had a meeting, you know, like once a week and so forth.
Isn't there one in Deep River, Rick?
There,
Back to 4.
yeah, there was right over by the sand pit there, right by Platwood Park in the back there.
Yeah.
They
There's more industrial.
it was all industrial and it was for the startup companies. And it was like 30, 20, 25 or 30 in there.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, because, yeah, those are all full now and they're all adding on now.
And Carl, we don't want to forget that what was once there could be good again. So when Custom Marine
Yeah.
was making the valves and stuff for the submarine industry, now the submarine industry is starting to explode again. There's going to be opportunity for people to do that kind of stuff. So
So,
when you have this study, don't want to overlook that.
I agree with you, Tom, on that. I mean, you know, it is zoned industrial.
Yeah, industrial or light industrial.
Yeah, I
There's a
mean,
difference.
it can be done again, and the only, not really a counter to that is the defense industry in Connecticut has been strong forever, right? I mean, and yet this hasn't picked up on that. So that's a little disappointing, but there's never been more work than there is now.
And it's on a west coast.
Yeah.
And holding fuel down there by the tracks.
So I mean, that's a very good example right there. I mean, you know, maybe, you know, there's someone who wants to be closer to EV or, you know, and therefore they might, you know, this is that's an attractive location. for them.
Yeah, because the spur from, next door, with the,
Next door.
next door to Custom Marine, the big sand pit there, Tilcon.
Yeah.
The spur goes right up to the edge of this property and it can be extended, and it is a southbound spur, which is highly desired.
Yeah, I hear a lot about that spur because people on
The other side want it.
the people who live on Rivers Ridge complain about the graffiti on the cars that sit idle there.
Yep.
I get that. And so I called Tilcon. I said, anything you can do about these graffiti cars? Anyway,
Well, I think, you know, kind of picking up on Tom's point, one of the reasons why having a group come in and take a look at this is we're not sure all the opportunities that there can be. I mean, one other aspect, just as similar, is the whole major effort that's going to be going on for the next 30 years in the way of offshore wind. And we've got so many of the companies that are making widgets for offshore wind are in Europe. And the US is now trying to create companies in the US that would be able to supply that. And the major, you know, place on the East Coast is going to be the State Pier. So having some light industrial or industrial land on a rail spur that can get to the State Pier could be huge. And so it's just a matter of somebody who can come in and begin to put all these pieces together and say, hey, look, there is a market here, and then help us, as Carl was saying, actually go knock on the doors. So not just tell us this is a good idea, but actually say, we know some people in that industry. We'll go talk to them and see whether they're interested.
There's an industrial building down in Mystic that just filled up with tenants.
hold up, what?
With tenants,
They did?
yeah. There's a realty company down there. It's an industrial and commercial. Seaport Realty, and they filled it up.
It would be nice. It would be nice to keep it industrial. You know, I mean, industrial, it's hard to think of industry coming back. I mean, no one thinks of that. Everybody thinks it's gone. But maybe it's not, between the wind and the submarines, and it is zoned industrial. And the zoning commission is very protective of the industrial zones. Because once they're gone, they're gone. And that's one of the reasons that they didn't like the proposal that came in with economic development 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So,
And then we overlook oftentimes the ability to land helicopters, establish helicopter pads around the town, you know, which could be important during the times that we need.
All right, I will make a motion. I have no questions.
yes. Well, you can do that in discussion too.
Yeah, okay. Let's buy Cameron for the 2023 strategic plan focus for Mariners Way.
And
Were you reading off, are you making that motion?
Yes.
But not the motion I had in front of me.
yeah,
Okay, I'll do it again. That was my own.
Yeah.
I like mine better. To approve 89,910 from the capital non-recurring fund 3350 and transfer said funds to a new budget fund entitled Mariners Way Consultant for the purpose of developing a strategic plan for Mariners Way. Further, to move this appropriation to town meeting.
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
Okay. Carl,
Yes.
have you spoken to the owners, about their efforts to try and sell the property? What responses are they getting? What they get over the 21 years it's been on the market?
More than 20. Yeah, I don't know if it's been on the market for 25 years. So we've spoken with the realtor more than we've spoken with the owners. I've spoken, I believe it's the widow of, help me, Rick, not, Halsey, no, not Halsey, the other one. Anyway, spoken to her a little bit. She's in California.
If you need the attorney, the female attorney that's in charge of that whole site, I need your name and info that she's.
Francis Heineman.
Heineman.
I know.
Yes, thank you.
All right, my pleasure.
So we've spoken to her and, you know, when we were doing the site assessment, for pollution, they were like, great, are you gonna get a remediation grant? And that's where we said no. Because their number, by all accounts, it was like 6 million and change, was preposterous. And
That's their sale price number?
that was back 6.5, whatever it was. That was back a few years ago. I don't know that it is even being actively marketed right now, to be honest with you. But the realtor, they have come to us, the realtor has a few times, and there's been multiple realtors. One of them kept saying, when are you gonna change the zone over there? Industrial's not coming back. You know, they wanted a zone change. So, in addition to that, I had Parker Heineman is now passed. But early on, after like probably in 12 or 13 or 14, I had lunch with Parker. And who was the guy who used to own the Griswold Inn? The old, and
Yeah.
he's passed too.
Yes.
And
Bill Winter.
Thank you.
What?
Bill Winter.
Very good, Winter. So Bill Winter and Parker Heineman were great pals. And, I talked to Parker about it a little bit. He didn't really, that was back in the day. He didn't indicate what he wanted to do with it. And we were talking, it was early on, I was, early on in the job, and we were starting our Mariners Way group. So I think he was more interested in what we were looking to do. And it never really developed before he fell out of the picture. As a side note, Bill Winter and Parker Heineman invited me to Bill Winter's house to have lunch one day. And that was kind of a more formal meeting. And it's one of the few times, like, they're drinking at lunch. And I'm like, nope, no drinking for me at lunch. And guess what? The answer was never no with them when it was drinking at lunch.
Just so you know, you missed your chance.
No, I didn't miss it.
He didn't miss it, he took it back.
There was no saying no, but they were wonderful, wonderful guys. Old school, total old school. So the answer to your question is, there's been pressing on changing of zones, but they've also said, is the town doing it? Are there any proactive efforts by the town? And we have tried. There has been proactive efforts. We did a site assessment. We got this bar grant. We hired a company through the bar grant. And I forget how much the bar grant was for. It was probably, I think it was 6 figures, to do this civic moxie study, where we did outreach. We did 2 or 3 public hearings on that. So it just, I don't know how different things are with COVID, but, so the answer is nothing in particular with that property. Is that what you're talking about? That, I don't want to just focus on that property either.
So it seems to me there are 2 reasons.
High
High
price.
price and contamination.
Contamination, no, there's no doubt.
Right.
There's no doubt.
Well, there's a lot of ledge back there too.
So over in Essex where the Hazel building is,
The what building?
Hazel.
Yeah,
Witchcraft,
which Hazel?
Yeah, they're asking 3.8 million for that, and that's been,
Completely cleaned.
cleaned, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
And
I know
full of tests.
contamination, tests were done years ago. I have two questions.
Yeah.
One, is there any adjacent properties tested for contamination?
Not
Two, was the building itself tested?
good question. So we only did that property. We only did the custom marine property, the 20 acres, okay? And the building itself, we couldn't get Ty and Bond did not know. The answer is no on the building, okay?
So no test was.
It's not in the building, no.
And that was a manufacturing.
Yes, that's where there's definitely a problem. There's no doubt. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why is they wanted to do test pits. And that involved turning off the electricity. And the owners weren't fully cooperative in doing some of that. And they never got in the building. They only did the land around it. Now they found the assessment for the site was not bad at all. Nothing,
Interesting.
nothing that made them say, whoa, this is going to be really bad. In fact, one of the major findings was, I want to say, arsenic from agricultural purposes, 80 years ago. That was one of the major findings.
Carl,
years ago.
Is the Highline,
Or whatever.
the old Highline, is the old Highline building part of that parcel?
Yeah.
And what did the
Believe it.
results for that? I think that's gonna be your biggest problem.
The buildings, there's no doubt, there's gonna be cleanup in those buildings.
No, I'm talking about outside the building, in
Oh,
the ground
They,
itself,
they did test pits all over.
really.
Yep. There was one area that was worse than another, but nothing that, no, there weren't major oil tanks in the ground or any, they didn't find any underground flows that concerned them that were going somewhere else.
I have another question.
Yes, yeah.
It's all private property.
Yes.
And I'd like to know if you think the town has any leverage to enact any change on that building in particular, because that building is the linchpin to any kind of increase in value in that whole area. Do we have any leverage to respond to this proposal, whatever suggestions they have?
So yes, I mean, we did start a tax increment financing district out there. So, well, what do you mean to force them to sell or?
No, just to enact some of the proposals that would engender the increases. I'm talking for you now, I may be projecting beyond. I mean, I couldn't get on the grand list, I couldn't get a number for that Mariners Way. I got the general number. I know what the industrial grand list is. I know the rate of increase, but I don't have a focus on that whole area. And I'm thinking that the reason for the whole thing is to engender
Interest.
a gateway instead of a leadway. Right,
Yeah.
right now it's a lead.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that we have to look at having some kind of leverage to enact the proposal that we're spending a lot of money on. And I think if we don't have some leverage, nothing's going to
I
happen.
don't know what you mean. I'm, what do you mean by leverage, John? I mean,
To get the property owners to participate.
Yeah. What can we do, or you do, is first
to
elect.
get the property owners to participate. Is that
Well,
what
why
you're
are we,
talking
why are we spending $89,000? I would think to have some kind of
Yes.
change in the whole focus of that area.
So we have done outreach before and there are property owners. We know there are property owners in it over and above custom marine that want to sell.
Yeah, but that's the linchpin right there, custom marine.
It is, and they want to sell. We know that.
Okay,
So,
but what's preventing that?
so I think,
Overpriced.
I
At the end of
think,
the day, it's overpriced.
so I think if you have something in hand and you can go to multiple property owners and say, we want to combine not only this piece, but the other pieces beside it. And say, because we think we have someone who wants to come in and do a 35-acre development, mixed use, recreational. And I think that would incent some of these folks to get off the dime a little bit. Maybe I'm missing your point, so.
No, I'd like, I don't like spending money
Yeah,
that I don't.
period, or no?
Period. No, I mean, I look at it as an investment,
I do too.
and I don't see the leverage that you're talking about engendering the change that we're all looking for. And that's, that's just how I think. I might be wrong.
So,
But by doing the study though, it could entice somebody that wants to come in and do a 30-acre project. Especially when there's opportunities, submarine base.
Well, I agree, except that building has to be contaminated.
yeah,
And nobody knows the cost of remediation on that. We haven't had any tests done on it. I mean, maybe we should do that. I don't know, maybe we should put this money that we're requesting in a fund and.
I could get a
the test
grant for
done.
that. We could get a grant for
Oh,
that.
you can.
The state budget's $20 million a year for remediation.
So don't forget those, John, we remediated when the state does. He's gonna go up on his project.
But can we remediate, can we remediate or force any kind of action on the property now in private hands?
So yes, the answer to that is yes. And I'll tell you why I say that, and without getting into particulars. There's a city that we're currently working on a parcel that was identified as a hazardous materials site. With testing to prove it, that they were able to show when across property lines. Once it goes across property lines, the state steps in and they designate it as a significant environmental hazard.
Well, that's what I asked.
And then what they can do is they can apply for funds to go in and remediate those particular hazards and or site assessments where you get your numbers for your buildings and so forth. In this particular incident, it's privately owned and the city wants the property, and the owner of this particular property is actually living in New York and is very absent and using the property for questionable means. So they're using the environmental laws to their advantage. And that's how they're doing it.
Will the city end up with the property after it gets cleaned? What
Yes.
happens after it gets cleaned? I think that's the issue, right?
They'll end up with this, they'll end up with it based upon the amount of money that's involved because the city's got to sponsor the funds. They'll be matching funds, so they'll be looking for reimbursement and they'll end up taking it in the end.
So they can go after the property owner.
So we haven't had any contamination on adjacent properties. So
Not that we know of.
Yeah.
Matt, you want to join? It looks like were you looking to jump in?
I mean, I was just going to add off of what Rick was saying is that, if that is the same type of situation here, once the property is remediated, then we could be positioning it for the right kind of development partner to come in on the private side. And I think that's the key piece that you're talking about, John. Like, this report can go into the hands of Advanced CT, which does the recruiting for businesses to Connecticut. And Advanced CT then, based on what this, up-to-date data says, can say, these are the type of manufacturers we want to bring in to support operations at EB, for example. And then we have a plan for remediation that we can get grant funding for, and we have a piece that we can use towards marketing and bringing in the right type of development partner.
And the way I envision that happening is, you have three parties. You have the town working on the grants, you have an interested purchaser, and you have a willing seller. So you put them all together, hopefully that's what they would do. The town would get the grant for the developer to help close the deal. That's kind of the concept.
that's the concept. Okay.
That's,
There could be other contamination down that road also.
Where it used to be the sewage.
Gas stations,
Oh.
auto body shops, et
well,
cetera.
you also had the septic lagoon.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The septic pits that were filled in by Ronnie Baldy back in the day, there were two of them down there, I know, or three. Yeah, they covered them up after.
They called them lagoons.
Yes, lagoons.
No free
Midnight dump.
money, no free money down there, John.
Free cash flow. So I would be, so that is a very important piece. But the other large piece is that Pointowski piece, okay? That is also a trigger piece, if it were to go.
That'd be great for like attainable housing, close to the railroad.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, is you can walk right over the, yeah, I mean, it's very walkable for housing. And the other in the flood zone where that Thai restaurant was, we've talked about assembling a few pieces there. And people are interested in this, they're interested in moving their properties. And, whether it's remediation or whether it's just a grant, some sort of economic development grant, doesn't have to be remediation of pollution either, to help a deal move forward.
Well, as long as what you all.
It's three
agree-
parties.
Yeah,
It's the town would be very involved in all this. It's
Okay.
not just saying, here's the seller, here's the buyer, go for it. I mean, I think the town needs to be intimately involved in this, in either getting grants or cleaning up properties or doing whatever they need to do.
okay.
Are there any other questions?
It's not perfect. But one more comment, it's the tools that towns use to try economic development in a distressed area. And that's what we're investing in right now. How it plays out, there are no guarantees.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, if not, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried unanimously. And then Eric, I didn't hear you.
I was a yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, discussion and possible action on request for funds for an accounting system upgrade.
Oh, the accounting system is next, right?
Did I read?
Did you?
Yes, you did. You read it right.
Okay, all right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I would like to request an appropriation of $22,000 for an upgrade for the e-finance accounting system. We bought this system in 2017. A couple of years later, we had our first upgrade that took place. We were able to get the monies for the upgrade in the budget for that year. And by the way, the e-finance system is used jointly by the town and the Board of Education. We purchased it together. We are all on the same system. It's part of maybe our long-term strategy to, have some things that we do together in the future. And now, unfortunately, we just received a phone call after the budget season is over, telling us that we have to upgrade or they're no longer going to support the version that we're on after November. And, all I can say is this is the town-wide accounting system. We need to have support. We need to have backup. And so therefore, we're coming tonight to just request for the money for both the town and the Board of Ed to pay for the upgrade for the accounting system.
So the $22,000 will take care of both sides.
Both sides.
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second it.
Appropriate 22,000 from the capital non-recurring fund 3350 and transfer said funds to the off budget fund 7226 accounting system for the purpose of upgrading the e-finance accounting system for the town and Board of Education. Further, to move the appropriation to the town meeting.
And Rick seconded it?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I just want to try to understand the way the money works. So when the memo says that the town and the Board of Ed jointly purchased in 2017, does that mean that the Board of Ed contributed dollars at that point?
So there was an appropriation from the Board of Finance to make the purchase. So it was not in the budget, it came from the capital non-recurring account for the purchase of the accounting system. I think it was like $80,000 when we bought the software and the training and everything else that went along. It could have been 80.
No,
I don't remember.
so the Board of Ed did not contribute. It was, those were town
Yes.
funds.
Okay, so the idea that we're now doing this upgrade solely from the capital non-recurring, no contribution from the Board of Ed, it's kind of the way the system is working.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Eric is a thumbs up.
Very good.
You're kind of held captive by these software companies, you know?
Yeah. We're leaving.
Yeah, just the way it is.
If we don't, they'll just release all our emails.
Yeah.
Okay, number 9, discussion and possible action on the recommendation to appropriate funds for operational assessment consultant.
Okay, so for this one, we are looking for $72,500 for CLA Connect to perform an operational assessment. You all received the copy of the proposal last meeting, and just very, very briefly, it's a 3-part assessment. The first part is a multi-department assessment. Right now we have silos, and they're going to go from land use to building to fire marshal, the assessor's office to the tax collector's office. Get all of the department's strengths, weaknesses. Every single department has a different software system, and then they're going to make operational efficiency recommendations. From there, the next phase is a town hall admin and the departments that they support. This second phase is more of an HR assessment. They're going to assess all of the staff, their job descriptions, their roles. The recommendations from there are going to be in terms of succession planning, that we have staff in the correct roles, the correct places, if we need to reorganize in any form or fashion. And then the third phase is IT. Obviously, we have lots of systems and only one person running it, and he's doing an excellent job. But we need to look at vulnerabilities there. We need to look at gaps in coverage and things like that. And of course, as I mentioned, we have all of these systems in place. We want to make sure that, you know, we have all of our I's crossed and I's dotted and T's crossed from an IT perspective. So they'll make recommendations for that.
But we also, on the IT, we look for future planning.
And for future, yeah,
I
very
mean,
important.
that was one of, and we talked about it with Larry.
Yes.
It is, you know, we're a one-man operation right now. I mean, it's remarkable how well it's being done on the town side, but, you know, that may need to merge, that function may need to merge or with a different department. Or, you know, I don't know what the future holds for that. So to get some ideas on that and maybe how other towns are doing that, whether it's a dual function that towns and boards of ed share. So that's what we're looking at a little bit with that.
So you all said, you know, there's a few things that you wanted to have some feedback on. One, what was the value add to the municipalities for these types of operational assessment? Of the things, the recommendations that they actually recommended, how many were implemented? And then finally, you know, really to tease out a little bit more about the staff, the backup and the succession planning, because that was a really crucial part of that. So to that end, we did, Carl and I asked for some references from CLA Connect. They provided us with 6 references. We called upon 4 of them, and we actually met with 3 of them. And I'm not going to say the names of the towns publicly, but if anybody wants to know afterwards, I'll let you know. Because, you know, we're looking at a little bit of things that were wrong in those organizations. So the first one actually was in Vermont, and they did an organizational assessment. They had a town clerk treasurer area that had 35 employees in there, and no one knew what they were doing. They didn't know what their roles were. It sounded like it was a pretty much of a mess up there, really. CLA outlined the strengths and weaknesses of every aspect of the department. They found individuals that did their jobs well, but perhaps weren't very good leaders. They ended up implementing 8 of their 10 recommendations, which included succession, whether to bring new people in or strengthen existing people through extra training. They had recommendations surrounding improved customer service, documentation, the functions and roles of staff to better align the whole organization, and documenting procedures. So, that outcome, what did they get out of it? Did they save money? No, they didn't save any money, but that wasn't their goal. They wanted to have a more efficient and a more sustainable operation, and they felt that they were successful there. And she said she really did enjoy working with CLA Connect. They're a great organization. They did what they said, had nice things to say about them. Next, I spoke with a town in Connecticut, and they used CLA Connect a little bit differently than what we plan. Our plan is that we're presenting to you. They actually use them on an ongoing basis, and so their Board of Finance has an audit subcommittee, and they have an internal and an external audit. And every year they create an audit plan, and they'll say, let's take a closer look at Park and Rec this year. They go through that. Let's take a closer look at whatever department the town, on and on and on, based on risk. So they've used CLA Connect over and over again. They have 3 pre-qualified firms. And every time they have a audit request to look at something with a lot of operational issues to it, they tend to pick CLA Connect. And she said that they were a great partner, a professional team, great communicators, and they handled their work on time and within budget. So they felt very highly and worked with them, on numerous occasions. And then the last one that we spoke with, actually here in Connecticut, did something very similar to what we want to do, like the land use down to the tax collector, that type of thing. They didn't go all the way down to the tax collector. They were concerned about leadership and regulatory violations in their land use area. They didn't know if they were there or how strong folks were leading it and things like that. So they sought the assessment to redesign the organization, to identify potential efficiencies and the best use of staff. They also were in the midst of a search for a permitting software system. They didn't have one. So they had a large turnover, the end result, large turnover in leadership positions. They are implementing all of the recommendations. They just haven't finished doing it. And they really feel good about it because they've had turnover, that they can actually have the tools and the opportunity to, these employees were there for a very, very long time, retirements and things like that, to put things in place the way they want. And again, their goal was not to save money, but to ensure appropriate oversight, to reduce risks and things like that. And they had actually worked with the firm when it was Bloom Shapiro as their auditor, and they had a long-term working relationship with them. They trusted them really, really high. So high regards for this company. So I was pleased with all of the findings of the references.
Were the people that were involved the same people that are here on CLA Connect's best company? So I don't know.
Yes, the team member went from, yes. And I actually have an example of, someone sent over one of their reports that they got. So it was very detailed. I had it here.
So was the Board of Finance paid that did all the audits?
No, they were not. That was a subcommittee.
Is it a volunteer group?
Volunteer, the subcommittee, the audit committee. No, they didn't do the audits. The subcommittee members of the Board of Finance, were in the subcommittee, and then they told the finance folks and the internal auditor what to do. And then they go out and hire these external folks, to do the detailed work. Yes.
Thank you. No, Jeff Ziplo, who's leading these teams, they work all over the place. I mean, they're a national company, CLA now, formerly Plum Shapiro. He's certainly all over the Northeast region, lives in Old Saybrook, which is kind of neat, at this point. So, not that he would take an extra interest, but he does call us home now. So I think that's cool.
Formerly Plum Shapiro,
Yes. Yep. Yeah, this company absorbed Plum Shapiro, I think.
wow.
So I'd like to make a motion to appropriate $72,500 from the capital non-recurring fund 3350 and transfer said funds to a new off-budget fund entitled Operational Assessment Consultant for the purpose of assessing the workflow and staffing at town hall. Further, to move this appropriation to town meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So, comment if I may, I think we're I think we're entering this from a point of strength, which is good, that we're not entering it from a point of weakness. That's my belief, and Tom's laughing. And yeah, I talked to Leanne a little bit about this today. I mean, we've made a lot of changes over the years, a lot. I believe we're a better organization, both from people and from efficiency and in software. We've made incredible upgrades in that field. So it will be, I think, good to have a third party come in and take a look and optimize what we've done to date, and perhaps make some recommendations where we're weak. I think if we move forward with this, it can also be an example for other organizations within our town.
I was just gonna say, maybe some other departments would consider it.
And whether that is involving the Board of Ed, police services, you know, I've stated very publicly that I think the Board of Ed and the town, we cooperate a lot already. We're a small town. I think we can cooperate more. And I'd love to see a path forward at some point for the town and the Board of Ed to continue to do a little bit more, not only purchasing together, but job sharing together. I think there's potential for that. So we start here and then we can move on. Well, but I think that's the idea, and that's where I'm coming up. That's my thought process on why we should move forward with this.
I've never heard of anybody coming in the front door and not being helped when they come into this building. So that's a plus that we have already with the people that we have here and the management.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, when I go to other towns, there's a big difference.
So, I'll just, first of all, thank you for following up on the question. Really appreciate doing that. As I was at the last meeting, I support doing this. I think it's a great idea. I do want to reiterate though, that if this is the proposal that we're working off of, they do not suggest that there will be a review with the Board of Finance. And I think that it's an important part of the process.
We'll do it. I mean,
I understand. I just want to be on
We
record.
did talk with it. Carl and I did meet with them and we asked them, and they said, of course, and they do it often and they're very happy to do it. And I meant to mention that. So that is correct.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to say, first of all, I'd like to get your idea on succession itself. You have 18 full-time employees in the town hall and you have 12 part-timers. And you have just a few departments that have more than 2 people. And I just want to get an idea of what you feel about succession. And who will implement the plan if in fact they give you one?
So succession planning, and I'm going to not talk about my office.
I included that in the.
Yeah, I know you did. I mean, I think that's a little bit more difficult to talk about because it's an
Well, I
elective
don't talk about
office.
anybody in particular.
No, only because it's an elective office. That's the only reason I say that.
Well, most of them in town hall are elected.
No, they're not.
Well, I have all of them listed. I can tell you.
Well, it's a tax collector. It's the tax collector and the town clerk. I mean, and Barbara's elected.
And you,
Yeah,
right, and treasurer, right, the treasurer.
Yeah. but our department heads, we have 10 department heads and they're not elected. I mean, 10 others.
Well, you have in town hall, you have 4 people in accounting. All right, you have 1 assessor, 1 EDC person,
Yeah.
1 fire marshal, 1 IT person. You have 4 in land use. 2, and I couldn't decide whether you had 2 full-time or 3 full-time, so I put it 2 full-time and 2 part-time.
We have 2.
Then, and board of selectmen, you have 3 and 2. Then you have the tax collector, you have 2 people. In the clerk, you have 2 people and 1 part-time. So you have 3 altogether. In town hall itself, you have 2 full-time and 4 part-time. And that, they would include the people like Dan the maintenance guy, and I forget who the other people are.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 people in WPCA. That's 18 full-time and 12 part-time. So I just want your idea on succession.
Let's,
Yeah, and who's going to implement it?
It's a very interesting question. I think with regard to succession with government jobs, non-elective, they're very difficult to fill right now. There's not a lot of folks who are fire marshals, building
No, I
officials,
know, it's,
or for that matter, assistant finance directors or finance directors. We met with Amanda today talking about library directors, and there's 6 openings in the state. So government itself apparently is an industry people are not going into. I mean, maybe it's all industries.
could be.
I would hope to gain a little bit more insight from these folks. And I don't know how I would implement their recommendation yet, because I don't know what it is.
No, well, the question was, would you be the implementer?
I would oversee the implementation, certainly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the chief administrative officer, so the answer is yes to that question.
Okay. And the last question I have is, does every function in here have a job description in non-elected positions?
Yes,
They do.
yes.
Thank you.
And they may assist with that also. I mean, they're gonna look at job descriptions to make sure we're optimizing those folks. That was one of the comments we got from one of our interviews. Like, people were doing jobs and they're like, you know what, your job description is not only this, or it isn't even that part of your job, it's actually this over here. So we have some newer job descriptions, but we have some older job descriptions too. So that's a project unto itself, is job descriptions, but I know that's something they're gonna be looking at in this, and that'll be helpful to us, because they may suggest some changes, and then we can run it by the union, and as long as we're not dramatically changing the job description, it's gonna help us, I think, really identify what these people do and how to get the most out of them.
So what you do at the end is you always put in the job description, multiplex. That way you can ask them to do anything.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said, at the end of the job description, usually you put in multiplex, which means you can ask them to do anything.
Well, that's kind of what we've done with town hall administrators. That's what we've done. We've eliminated the assistant to the tax collector.
One thing I like
So
to
they're
see
not
happen
siloed.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to see happen is, and I hope you can bring it up for discussion if you agree with me, is, we don't have an HR department, I don't believe, as per se, and I would like to see all town employees, and I don't really think it should be one person, I should think it would be maybe a team of 3 people, that all exit interviews are done through this, team of this HR department, or whatever you want to call it. And I hope you look into that.
Yeah.
Because, I think that'll alleviate a lot of issues. And protect the town.
That's a good suggestion.
But one thing I forgot to mention was on the land use. I really think that when you do this thing, I would ask them to analyze the need or lack of a planner. A planning position.
Yeah, so Christine Costa is a qualified planner. And Lynette Wacker, who is doing our environmental work right now, is a planner also.
Oh, really?
So in fact, of all the offices, that office probably has the most, the easiest ability to have succession, that office. You have actually 2 very qualified people up there to do the work.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I see that Eric has a question. Eric?
Eric?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
2 quick questions, Carl. The first is, how long do they anticipate the study to take? And the second question is, if they do find efficiencies where current town employees, whether they work for Board of Ed or the town, are going to, work simultaneously for both, is there an issue with the union or any union issues with that?
So 2 months, they anticipate 2 months, but time frame stretch in terms of that. So let's call it 2 to 3. And we are not working with the Board of Ed right now, so I don't anticipate there will be any issues. But they might identify them if that is a direction we plan on going in. But right now, I don't think we're going to run into any bad union issues with this study, because we're keeping it within the unions that are controlled in town hall.
Okay. Anybody else? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to selectmen's report.
Couple quick things, the governor's waste management bill came out today. Well, not the governor's, it was a compromise, Senate, House, Governor. I have seen a summary of it. It seeks to end MIRA, Materials Innovation Recycling Authority, on July 1, 2026, which is interesting because we have contracts that go to 27. It says any surplus funds at MIRA are not surplus. They're considered basically funds of the state. They're going to be swept. Any towns that receive any of these surplus funds can be held liable for the pollution at the Hartford site. So they tie. So I emailed, and Norm responded to me just now. I said, because our tip fees are subsidized by funds that MIRA holds. So my question to Devin, Martha, and Norm were, is the tip fee stabilization fund considered surplus funds going to the town? And he responded, I'll look into the intent on that. Because, we're tip fee stabilized through 27. Even if we go somewhere else and we're only in it to 26, we're going to be taking money from MIRA for another couple of years. And I want to know that we can take that money and not be on the hook legislatively for the pollution at that site. I was talking to, Norm called me earlier today, we were on the phone for a while because that bill was in motion today. And we were talking about several issues. And, basically his comment was, if Hartford is looking to return that site to residential standards, you're looking at $1 billion. And it really, the best use for it is something else, whether it's commercial, park, a park, golf course, there you go. So anyway, that bill came out today, it's passed, it's done. Mira still exists. The governor has, forget it, I'm a director on that. I have a meeting tomorrow, a meeting next Wednesday. Those might be my last meetings, because I'm sure I will not be a director, come July 1 or whenever. We received the projected runs for Old Saybrook, monies to Old Saybrook, that we'll be getting next year. I think it went up $6,000 from where we are this year. So it went from 552 to 558. In the biennial.
Board of Ed.
What?
Did you get information on the Board of Ed,
Board of Ed,
the increase?
you know, I didn't see that in the spreadsheet that was sent. I didn't see that.
Because they bumped that by a few tens of millions. So-
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's coming to us, but I'll, good question. I don't know why they didn't send the DOE numbers. Just so you know, we have, the bridge that at, Beaver Dam Trail, we did apply immediately, even though we were denied for the local bridge program this year. Our application is in for next year. So, I don't see how, quite honestly, I don't see how we can fix that with our own money. It's too expensive. So we're gonna have to, it's designed, it's pretty much designed, but I think we're gonna have to wait until, we get some money from the local bridge program, which they did put more money into for next year. So I'm hopeful that over the next 2 years, we would get some money for Beaver Dam Trail, and then we would be able to fix that bridge. Right now, it's stable. The transfer station, Billy Claffey's done a great job up there. I don't know, that leave and take it area is like its own little park. And they're starting to build the structure that you're gonna be able to leave things under so they don't get wet. And that'll probably be done in the next 2 weeks, and it should be open. And ready to take all the stuff that's in my garage.
Need help?
I might, I'm certainly gonna need more than one car. The June, let's see. One other thing before I bring up the June 25th. The Waste and Recycling Committee is Barry O'Neill, Diane Stover, and Victor Benny. They've done, you know, they're very passionate about what they've done. Since that committee has started, we've done paint recycling up at the transfer station, taking it out of the waste system, out of the money that we pay on tip fees. We've done textile recycling, and now we're doing battery recycling. We have battery, and look, we're not taking a ton of stuff, we're taking tons out, but it's not moving the needle noticeably, but maybe it's keeping it steady, or maybe it's coming down a little bit. We have recycling bins in Town Hall, the Cape, all 3 schools, and I can't believe how many batteries end up in this stuff. It is remarkable. It's empty now, it got empty today, I think. I guarantee you in a week, it'll be half full again. And that's all coming out of the waste stream, which is great. I love that. Well, the latest thing we're doing is they have decided out of the small I hate calling it nip fees, but out of the small bottle fees that we're receiving, about 16,000 a year, we are purchasing 100 countertop bins for food scrap recycling. They're 1.3 gallons. We bought 100 of them. We're gonna sell them at half price at the transfer station. We're advertising it. I'm doing a press release. Actually, it went out today, I think, or it'll go out tomorrow. We have Blue Earth taking our food scraps from the transfer station. They take them and they take them to Quantum Power. And so it all makes energy at the end of the day. But Quantum, Blue Earth is giving us some materials, printing materials to further advertise these. So we're hoping that we're gonna cut the price in half. The town will subsidize it, and we're gonna do the first 100, see how it goes. June 17th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, Barry O'Neill will be up there, and Diane Stover will be up there. And they are going to try to offload 100 countertop bins to Old Saybrook residents to start bringing more awareness to food scrap recycling.
How much is the thing gonna be?
How much is what gonna be?
The one you're
I'm
selling?
sorry, the bin itself costs $20. We're selling it for 10.
Oh, jeez.
If I didn't say that, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
But it's more of an awareness. It's not only a functional campaign, but it's an awareness campaign. And in the governor's bill and the bill that the governor is going to sign about Mira and trash, it's all about food scrap recycling, folks. And that is the holy grail in this state. It's 20% at least, maybe 30% of what we throw away. So this is a good way. It's a perfect use of those funds. Those funds are going right back into recycling and the environment. And I'm hopeful that we can continue that program and move it forward a little bit. Any questions on that?
Blue Earth better put a few more bins up at the.
They will if we make it if it's successful.
I got a question.
Yeah.
A question. When we just paid 12,000 for the new dumpsters. And people are throwing their stuff in there, and then the guy's using some heavy equipment to smash it down and it's gonna wear the dumpsters out.
Okay.
Why don't we build a cement, those barriers, make a box, a 3-sided box, where the people would leave their stuff. And then if he smashed it between these heavy things, then picked it up and put it in the dumpster, then it would preserve our dumpsters from getting ruined.
Okay.
And then also, I think he could do a better job breaking it down, because it would be flat on the ground with just these barrier things, and just pound it down, pick it up.
Call me tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk to Billy about it. I'll forget. Okay. Call me tomorrow and I'll talk to Billy about that.
I just think of, save the dumpsters from being banged up quicker.
Okay.
And he's also, when he's doing it, he's going over and down.
Yeah.
So he can't do as good a job if it was on the surface.
Right. No, I hear what you're saying.
Carl, any time frame on the bathroom remodeling at Town Beach?
No, I don't know. No time frame on that.
Because I thought it would be done by this season.
I can ask.
Because we gave them money.
Oh,
I'll ask.
Okay.
Any comment on the parking lot, white lines and or,
Done at the transfer station. And is moving to town hall shortly. Okay? What else? You just said something else.
Ingham Hill Road, Route 1 by McDonald's, and then Schoolhouse Road and Route 1 by McDonald's. And three or
Stop
four-
bars.
Yeah, stop bars, and then several intersections in Indian.
I told him about that, and he's aware of it. And he's just getting the stripes.
Scheduling.
Yeah. So our June 25th party is going bonkers right now. We have 71. Well, we have about 60 people who are going to be 60 vendors that are going to be on Main Street, in addition to like 14 folks on Main Street stores that are going to be contributing. We have 4 brewers. We have 1 vintner. The permit only allows manufacturers of beer and wine, so they have to be craft essentially. We have a wide variety of food. We're advertising the heck out of it. I think you guys hopefully have seen it everywhere, I hope. And the advertising is going to continue. Pray for no rain. That's what I would suggest. But I think it's going to be a pretty big success. One of the issues we were having is the bands require a certain amount of power. And we're like, what are we gonna do for power? So we had, for COVID, we had the temporary power put down in the point when they were doing the testing down there. We own that pole and whatever electric is there. We just moved it today over to Porter Plaza. Eversource is hooking it up. We're gonna have tons of power for the bands. I mean, it was a simple solution. Chief came up with it. Chief organized it with Eversource, done. So that was great. I mean, you know, there's so many logistical issues that come into play here. And notices have been sent out to every homeowner in the area. It's gonna be hopefully a very big event.
One question I have, I'm back to the recycling place. When you pull out of there in a vehicle, the sign is so low that you can't see the cars. You know, if you're in a truck. I'm talking a normal truck, not a jacked up truck. They either need to move the sign back a little bit because you can't, when you pull up to go left or, you know, to see if the cars are coming, you can't see.
I don't know where you're talking about. When
The
you-
last time I had it was the rotary bar that goes, you know, the rotary.
The rotary bar is,
Advertising the rotary.
I'm sure they paid for the sign, but if they took the rotary sign out, then the problem would be gone.
Again, talk to me tomorrow, okay? And then we'll take a look at it. That's a very, did you get that comment from Tom? It sounds like something Tom would have asked.
No,
I'm kidding. That was a joke.
What about public works?
Like it needs to be fixed.
What about the public works sign?
It's just that every time I run on the dump, it's an issue.
Stuff for them, so.
Well, I did think I followed up on that.
And the answer was?
Huh?
You forgot.
No, I didn't. Billy said he called Ray and I'll find out.
Okay. Any liaison reports?
None.
Any public comment?
One
Don't see
member,
anybody.
you do have one member. of the-
Yeah, you do.
Do you have any comment, Tony? Hearing none. The only thing that I have is our meeting in July
Fourth is a Tuesday.
is a Tuesday. Did we schedule a meeting for that day?
Right.
I think we left it on the schedule with the idea that we were not.
That's right. We didn't schedule that meeting.
I don't think we did.
Okay, so then we'll only have to meet the third week of the month.
June and then the third week of July.
Yeah. Okay, just so that everybody is aware, me in particular.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right,
All in
thank you.
favor?
Thank you all.